Music discovery that's free from the algorithms that push listeners toward the squishy middle of sameness. We're playing new music from non-commercial artists, handpicking each song with care because we really do care. And we believe that music discovery unlocks the potential of music to move and inspire. Dig in deeper with us on 89.9 HD4, the WJCT app, or on jaxmusic.org.
Hear from some of the biggest newsmakers in the community on First Coast Connect, where we discuss the issues and stories that affect your life across the First Coast. We also ask for your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Engagement is what drives the show. So engage with us right now as we get started here in just a few minutes on First Coast Connect.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Starting today, One Pulse is no longer paying for the upkeep of the temporary Pulse Memorial in Orlando. Danielle Pryor reports.
One Pulse terminated its lease for the property earlier this month. The temporary memorial is now back in the hands of its original owners, including Barbara Poma. Moving forward, One Pulse says it's up to the owners to pay for its maintenance. Poma stepped down as the director of the nonprofit in April. A month later in May, One Pulse announced it would be building a permanent Pulse memorial at a different location than the Pulse nightclub, where 49 people were killed. In Orlando, I'm Danielle Pryor.
And in a statement, One Pulse said it remains focused on finalizing a new site for the memorial and updating designs for the permanent memorial and museum. Here in Jacksonville, One Jax CEO Kyle Reese has announced that he's leaving the interfaith organization as of December 31st. That departure comes only 6 months after One Jax severed ties with the University of North Florida as the state worked to rid higher education of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, it says. In a letter to the One Jax board, Reese said he had been offered a position as senior minister for First Baptist Church of Savannah, Georgia. It is Labor Day weekend, and if you are planning to head to the beach in St. Johns County, there are some free shuttles to help get you there. One will transport you from Cornerstone Park on A1A to Michler's Landing Beachfront Park, and the other will take you from City Hall to the St. Johns County Pier parking lot. Those shuttles will run every 20 minutes from 10 to 4, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. You can download the St. Johns County Reach the Beach app for more updates. Today, we have a 50% chance of a thunderstorm in the afternoon, partly sunny with a high near 87 degrees.
This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Opinions expressed on the Friday Media Roundtable are those of our panelists and do not necessarily reflect the views of WJCT News.
Hey, it is Al Letson. You're listening to First Coast Connect. It's a Friday, and of course, that means it's the Media Roundtable. How y'all doing today? We are moving into the weekend. It's a beautiful thing because this week has been a lot. Some of the items that we have on the menu, the latest investigation into Saturday's mass shooting, plus a look at how victims of the tragedy are being remembered and how to support their families, and assessing Hurricane Idalia's damage to our area. Then later, why 904 Day is a perfect opportunity to support small businesses. It's a full show today, so please, let's get it. All right, so with me in the studio today is Will Brown of Jacksonville Today. How you doing, Will?
Good morning.
Good to see you, sir. My friend, Andrew Pantazzi of the Tributary. How are you today?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah? All right. I mean, I'm just checking on you.
It's been a long week. It's been a long week for all of us.
Yeah, it has been. And then on the phone, Nate Monroe. Nate, you there?
I am.
Listen, man, I keep telling you, you can bring the baby to work. It's okay. Andrew Pantazzi has skills. He's a baby charmer. He can do it. It's fine.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were going to be the one to watch him if I brought him.
I totally will, but I'm just saying we can tag team it. Like
Al and I will just both of us will deal with your son, and then you can just take over the radio for the hour.
Exactly. Thank you. I mean, that'd be a lot of fun. Actually.
Yeah, the Will and Nate show.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have Nikesha Williams. She's on her way to the studio. Traffic and rain is kind of crazy out there, so she will be joining us shortly. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing today?
I think it's been a heavy week, a lot going on, and still processing feelings and processing all the news from this week.
Yeah, I want to start off with Nate. But before we do, hey, listen, our lovely listeners, can join us at 549-2937. You can tweet us at FCC On Air. You can email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. And you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, all over the place. We're there. You look for us, you will find us. And I would like to introduce the amazing, the lovely Nikesha Williams, Jacksonville Today contributor. How are you today?
I'm good. Traffic was trash this morning.
I know. Take a deep breath. It's all good. You're amongst friends. We are thankful that you're in the house. I wanted to start off with you, Nate, because you recently, like the day after, I believe, the mass shooting by a white supremacist on the northwest side of Jacksonville, you listed on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it these days, Elon's tragedy. I don't know. You listed all the ways that sort of white supremacy has shown up in this community recently. Can you kind of run that down for me again?
Yeah, sure. And this is something I've been working on a piece that should be online today that is kind of a deeper rumination on this. But you know, this mass killing did not happen in a vacuum. It happened after a year, and this really predates even that, but it happened after a year in which we've seen the presence of white supremacy, of literal Nazis in our community, making very brazen public demonstrations. And I think it's fair to argue that we, the community, and our public institutions, just simply did not forcefully enough push back on those things. That is not to suggest that any one person is to blame for Saturday's killing, of course, other than the killer himself. But these things don't happen in a vacuum, and this problem of white supremacy marred Florida Georgia weekend last year. I mean, what is supposed to be a really high-profile event spotlighting the city actually became a national embarrassment. And when you revisit that weekend and you revisit the way that we responded, it really reads now as a pretty chilling prelude to what happened this week.
Yeah. Nikesha, you had some thoughts?
I think what Nate is saying is only a drop in the bucket, because while the shooting did not happen in a vacuum, in the presence of the white supremacist images that were projected onto buildings around Florida Georgia weekend last year, and a couple of other incidents from last year all contributed to that, I would argue that white supremacy is always amongst us. Racism is always amongst us. And so it's in the presence of the Confederate monument in Springfield that still has not been taken down, where the funding is there to take it down. And instead of doing so, they want to study it or earmark that money to go toward moving a liquor store or a school in a neighborhood where the two are not supposed to even be together. That's not doing anything for us. Racism and white supremacy is in the very fabric, in the marrow of the bones of the city of Jacksonville, of the state of Florida, and of the United States of America. What happened on Saturday in Northwest Jacksonville is what has been happening to Black people in this country since its inception. And I know people don't want to talk about woke theory and critical race theory and all of these things, but we cannot act like the legacy and the horrors and the history of this country is not directly tied to those three people being murdered in Northwest Jacksonville.
Yeah. Will, do we know any more about what happened at EU and where the shooter stopped first?
So the shooter stopped first at a Family Dollar right in Durkeeville, which is at the corner of Kings Road and Myrtle Avenue. And then for some reason he was thwarted there, and then went over toward Edward Waters University. It is a university, despite what some people in Tallahassee keep calling it Edward Waters College. It is a university and has been a university for 2 years. He went to Edward Waters. Some students approached a lieutenant with the private security force, Antonio Bailey, and when Bailey notified someone in JSO, and that apparently spooked the white supremacist shooter from unloading at Edward Waters. She started to put on tactical gear, including vests and masking his face on a day it was very hot, which made him stand out immediately. And my understanding is that Lieutenant Bailey kind of followed him as he went off campus. He went up Spires, over to 9th, north on Fairfax, left on the 13th, and then made his way back to the family, to the Dollar General, where unfortunately 3 people lost their lives.
Yeah. Andrew, how has local state lawmakers reacted to the tragedy?
I mean, I think with righteous outrage we've seen, especially from State Representative Angie Nixon and State Senator Tracy Davis, both of whom represent the area. I think this again goes to what we were talking about earlier, that this doesn't happen in a vacuum. This goes back to, I think, the righteous indignation over not being allowed to teach accurate histories and not being able to talk about systemic problems, historic problems, and present problems, and the restrictions on what we teach in schools and what we are allowed to even teach in workplaces now that have been passed from the state, and the idea that at the same time we're trying to say we're no longer a place that struggles with or deals with racism, we're seeing a explicitly racist, bigoted attack leading to the death of 3 Black people who were targeted because of their race. And so I think there's a lot of connection to this. Is not just a mass shooting where the focus is on whether there are effective gun control policies that lawmakers are debating, or that this is another mass shooting where we're focused on mental health or things like that, but rather that this is a mass shooting that is at its core racial terror, and it requires a very I think race conscious response in how we deal with the idea that this is not just some lone actor out there who acted in a vacuum, but there is a broader context we're all living in and requires a bigger response.
It seems to me that like what all the panelists are pointing to is the fact that all of this is connected. Like the idea of not teaching real African American history in Florida is connected to this. The lack of response from civic leaders from past incidents, the racist projections that we saw during Florida Georgia weekend, the lack of willpower to actually take down these Confederate monuments, which we should be really clear, these Confederate monuments were put up as an intimidation tactic. It was put up to tell Black residents to remember your place. Mm-hmm. And we will honor the people that we want to honor, who were basically like, their edifices to white supremacy.
Didn't they lose?
Thank you.
You would think so.
I mean, I thought they lost.
They
the
lost.
Confederacy lost.
They lost, but we have to put up, things to honor that.
Isn't that anti-American? It's almost anti-American, to like celebrate.
Treasonous, some would say, right?
Well, I'm saying to celebrate losers. I mean, as much as the U.S. Women's National Team caught grief for not winning in this World Cup, you would think that celebrating losers is not something we do in this country. Just
all of that, yes, yeah, all of that. And when the governor came here, he could not call the man a white supremacist. He could not call him racist. He called him
a scumbag.
A scumbag, which his choice of words feel very intentional. It feels very much that the governor would like to forget that this has anything to do with race.
If you heard about the killing just from the governor's mouth, you would hear maybe a sense of like this was wrong, but you would have no idea what motivated the killer. You would have no idea that people were targeted specifically because of their race. And it's hard to imagine, just to provide a different context, if a killer went into a grocery store and specifically started calling out people's religions and said, I'm targeting you because you are a Christian or an evangelical, that we would not have heard very specific denunciations of this type of bigoted, anti-tolerant behavior in that case. Yet in this case where we're dealing with race, it's completely absent. It's been bleached from his language.
A scumbag cut someone in line in a dollar.
Andrew's,
Go ahead, Nate.
I was in Andrew's hypothetical. I mean, we would not only hear about it in clearer terms, we would be hearing people like DeSantis connecting that killing to deeper issues with secular and non-secular America. We would be hearing this deeper discussion. And to Andrew's point, if you only listen to what Ron DeSantis had to say about these killings, I'm not certain you would even know the victims were Black. He could not muster the vocabulary to describe what happened. And it was remarkable. I think the crowd in real time at the vigil understood this as it was happening. He just refused to speak about it in direct terms. It was all just very passive. And I think that speaks volumes. DeSantis is somebody who, as a very explicit political project, targeted areas like Newtown and Graham Park for political disempowerment. He muscled through the legislature a congressional map that deliberately, very intentionally, lumped those communities in with, Nassau County communities to the north, specifically so a Republican could be elected to that seat. And so for the first time in decades, these neighborhoods don't have a representative that they chose. And, that is in its own obviously nonviolent way targeting Black people because of their race for a policy consideration. And so on some level, it's not really all that shocking that the governor might find it a little bit awkward to talk about the evils of targeting people because of their race. And, again, I think this is all connected.
So 2 points. I did one thing I wanted to say is a scumbag is somebody who cuts in front of someone at a Dollar General, not someone who goes into a Dollar General and starts shooting. Secondly, speaking specifically about the Duval County portion of the 4th Congressional District, I spoke with some folks before the shooting who live in Northwest Jacksonville. Said, "Hey, have you had a chance to people who are very politically engaged? Have you had a chance to connect with your congressman for this area?" No. Multiple people said, "No, I haven't really spoken with him. I haven't had a chance to connect with him." And so when folks say, "Oh, well, parts of Jacksonville have been the minority access district has been removed," well, that's what they mean, because some of the same folks that I spoke with, they might not have appreciated every single thing that Al Lawson or Kareem Brown before him did, but they at least had a way to connect with them, which they have not had a way to connect as readily and as easily with their elected representative in Congress.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go to the phones. We've got Stanley. Stanley, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. Hello to everybody. My main concern here, and I'm a Vietnam vet, my main concern here, we have a lot of issues here, a lot of pathology in the city here, and regardless of race. But my main concern, until we be able to address those issues, we need to get rid of those guns. We need to address that. We could talk about everything up under the sun, but we can't have those conversations until we address the gun issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. And you can join the conversation, too. You can call us at 549-2937. You can tweet us at First Coast FCC on air. First Coast Connected, WJCT.org. We're on Facebook, YouTube, all of it. You got us. To Stanley's point, I think it's pretty obvious that like we as a country have a gun problem. And so like, and also to Stanley's point that like this issue is many layered, right? You've got the layer of racism, which is a huge thick layer, but then you've got the issue of gun violence that like is right under it. And these two things come into play a lot in this country.
And it's worth noting that the person who did the shooting purchased these guns legally.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing the retailers did improper in terms of selling him these firearms. The issue was also that he had hate in his heart. So as much as guns kill people, and as much as there are gun issues and we need to have gun discussions, nobody goes into a black neighborhood and shoots and kills people without my point is it's a two-pronged approach. So whether it's, even if someone didn't have a gun, they would have some other weapon to execute their racist animus, regardless if we don't handle the hate issue as well.
Right. And we're going to go to the phones. We've got Todd. Hey, Todd, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing fine. Good morning to everyone. I'm a spokesperson for Take 'em Down, Jax, and we've been fighting for about 7 years to these statues removed because they were put up to celebrate white supremacy after the overthrow of Reconstruction. And they were set up and put up to send a message to the African-American community. As Mr. Letson said, it's a terrorist tactic, basically. We have a picket line up every Friday from 11:30 to 12:30 outside of City Hall, and that will be happening today and every Friday until that statue is removed out of Springfield Park. The blood of our sisters and brothers that were killed are dripping from the hands of Ron DeSantis and any Republican or Democrat who will not denounce white supremacy. This has gone on long enough, and people need to be able to really take a stand against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. So in the aftermath of the shooting, several prayer services, vigils, and rallies have been held across across Duval, and funds have been started to help support the family of the victims. Let's talk a little bit about these community events. Have you guys gone to any of them? I went to one myself. I went on the days all blend together.
I think it was Monday.
Yeah, we were there together at James Weldon Johnson Park, and it was a pretty good turnout. And one thing that was interesting to me about that turnout is some of the speakers had very pointed words towards certain Jacksonville politicians.
Specifically, Councilwoman Jacoby Pittman.
Yeah, specifically Jacoby Pittman. Can we talk a little bit about what the tension is there?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we saw at the initial prayer vigil in the park with Councilwoman Pittman, where the governor was invited, but not just the governor, Councilwoman Pittman's comments beforehand as well. She described this as a party. Let's get a party atmosphere. She opened with like, how's everybody feeling? I can't hear you. How's everybody feeling? Acting, I think, very disconnected from how the community was feeling. And then when the governor started speaking, the community was booing him. And what I think could have been a moment of catharsis for people in the community or a moment of validation for people in the community turned into a chiding. She chided the community to stop booing and specifically said, when the governor comes here with gifts for my community, like, we welcome him, and that, he was offering the additional funding for security to Edward Waters. He was offering potential funding for the families, and so she chided them to stop booing. And this came at the same time that pretty much all the other Black Democratic elected officials were trying to connect state policy to what was going on, and she was doing the opposite. And she has since recast her role in a interesting revisionist, I think, approach of trying to say that she did not actually welcome the governor when he came, and she also denounces the governor. But that moment really upset people because they were literally being told, sit down, shut up, don't talk. This is not for you. This is for the governor, and we are doing this for the governor. And what the community wants and what the community needs is not our priority right now. Our priority is vetting the state elected official who might bring us money.
Yeah, I was thinking, hearing Jacoby's, what she was saying, and please, Nikesha, correct me if I'm wrong, if you disagree with this thought process. But for me, it felt like she was using a playbook that maybe worked in the 90s, a playbook of what comes to mind is like when Clinton was the president and the crime bill came out, and a lot of black politicians signed on to that crime bill, which now we know put many black people in prison unfairly, like at a disadvantaged rate, at a exasperated rate. And so and I don't know, I just felt like that was the kind of thing that you would hear from black politicians 20, 30 years ago, who thought that you got to get in where you can with white politicians to get the crumbs that they give you, whereas like now this generation just is we're just not going for that.
I think your framing of that is absolutely correct. I think even more recent, I would think of when Charlie Crist was governor and was a Republican, and Barack Obama came and they embraced excuse me, and that basically ended Charlie Crist's political career until he became a Democrat, and still is struggling even now because then President Obama was bringing gifts for Florida after disaster. But in a larger context, I think the biggest issue in connecting state policy to the mass shooting and the crumbs the governor was trying to bring, and why he couldn't bring himself to say that this was a racist mass shooting, not racially motivated racist mass shooting, or to even utter the words white supremacy, is, to me, and if the last time I'm invited to this program, that's fine. But to me,
it will not be.
Governor Ron DeSantis is racist. It shows in his policies. It shows in his actions. It shows in his demeanor and his attitude toward black people and the black community, from the gerrymandering of the 4th Congressional District to the policies to go after DEI programs, to the policies going after gender studies and the new African American history program, where we're going to teach that people who were enslaved learned something from their enslavement. No, you went and found the people that knew how to harvest rice. You went and found the people that knew how to harvest cotton and tobacco, and then you enslaved them and made them work for free and build a country that you refused to repay them for. So coming now after a mass shooting and refusing to say that the person who did that atrocity was racist, was inspired by the very scum that you stirred up in that cauldron of brew over the last 4 to 6 years, to refuse to say that and indoctrinate yourself and invoke yourself as part of the problem, shows exactly who you are. And then to say, oh, let's give $1 million to Edward Waters University. Let's give $100,000 to the family. I'm not going to say keep your money because it's a start. We need more of this. We need more of this from the state and from the government. It's looking like reparations to me, and it's time to pay up. And it's not for reparations for slavery. It's for the current harms that are happening right now to black people in this country because of policies and politicians like Ron DeSantis, who won't acknowledge that they are harming an entire community of people in the name of political expediency.
Willie?
So,
excuse me, Will, sorry.
One thing that I just can't help but think, someone said, quote, as we all know, the governor is not fond of diversity. That was Mayor Donna Deegan on August 24th, 2 days before the shooting happened.
And that sounds like the governor, Ron DeSantis, is racist.
I also want to say this because I think wasn't it President Obama who said, don't boo, vote?
Mm-hmm.
In 2018, Governor DeSantis won by 32,463 votes. The number of black Jacksons who did not vote was 63,704. If just black folks in Jacksonville had voted, then maybe instead of having to boo the governor when he comes to Jacksonville after 5 years of policies that many believe are antithetical to black issues, might have had a black governor.
I would. I hear you. I will just say that it always. I don't know. It always hits me when we talk about Black people not going to the polls, and I would say that, like, first of all, like, in this country, the not just Black people but every ethnicity like does not go vote the way they should.
Facts.
But I think what that tells us, though, is that not just Black people but everybody feels like the political system doesn't work for them. And so if you are a Black person in Jacksonville, let's say you're a Black person in Northwest Jacksonville, and you watched your representative get taken away from you, and you feel like you have no political power and things don't really change in your life. If you like, I remember when Barack Obama was elected president, I was working in Springfield at the Sanctuary on 8th Street, which is my home away from home. I love the Sanctuary on 8th Street. That's where I volunteer and do all sorts of stuff. It's amazing. Everybody should check it out. I was working with young Black boys then, and when Barack Obama was elected, I remember the only thing that changed is that, like, I could tell them and believe it that you could be whatever you want to be, right? But their lives didn't change. They didn't see any difference in their day-to-day life with a Black man as the president of the United States. And so if I am a Black person in Northwest Florida or in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and nothing is changing in my life, and I've got a busy life, I'm trying to feed my family, I'm trying to pay the bills, I'm trying to do all the things, and you tell me to vote, but I haven't seen any changes, then maybe I'm not so much pressed to vote. I believe that we should vote. I'm not saying against it. I'm just saying we have to think about how we're framing that and put the onus on politicians to make a difference. Angie Nixon gives people a reason to vote. You can see, like, what Angie Nixon does in the community, and that makes people want to vote. But most politicians, you don't see that engagement.
But that's where we have the circuitous problem. So Angie Nixon is a state representative, works in the community, started off as a community organizer, and then used that organizing background to then go into Tallahassee and do that same work for the community that she represents. The higher up that you get on the political totem pole, when you get to the office of the President of the United States, you have but so much power. You saw that in the 8 years of the Obama presidency. Trayvon Martin, Jordan Davis, Eric Garner, Mike Brown, Freddie Gray, Sandra Bland, should I go on? He only had so much power to do anything about the wave of death that we saw repeatedly and over and over and over again. President Biden, in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, Biden submitted to Congress a gun bill, a police reform bill. You know what they gave us? Juneteenth.
Yep. Listen, I don't disagree with that. I mean, like, Barack
but
Obama, like, got a lot of comments or a lot of hatred just for wearing a tan suit. I get it. Like, I'm not saying that, like, they're not trying. I'm just saying that, like, when it comes down to
not voting, you don't see the change. But then that goes because you don't see the change. So I bring all that up because who is hamstringing the president? It's the U.S. Congress. And who is drawing the lines of the districts for who you're voting for in the U.S. Congress? It's the state legislatures. And so we go back to what we're seeing right here in Florida, that you don't have a representative to represent you because they don't want you to.
Well, I think, to Al's point, the issue is for people who have so many pressing, deep concerns when there's so much going on, it's hard to put the onus or what can feel like the blame, the responsibility, the burden, the weight on the people who are struggling the most to lift everyone else up and vote, to say you didn't vote enough and that's why we ended up in the circumstance we're in. And so I think that's just the balance, is acknowledging for people who have so much going on, where it's the monthly rent bill, it's the homeowner's insurance costs going up so much that they're stressed about. I would like everybody to vote. I would like them to vote. I would like all people in our community who are able to vote, but also I can understand why there is maybe more disengagement.
But not even disengagement. We also have to talk about the fact that the Black vote has been disenfranchised.
Absolutely.
Purposefully and intentionally.
And because of that disenfranchisement, that is why people I spoke with people throughout Northwest Jacksonville, all heading up into last fall's elections, and that is essentially what they said. My vote doesn't count. My vote doesn't matter. And maybe it is my personal background as someone who is the child of someone who literally had a federal case won to help voting rights in their community. Maybe that's why I'm more passionate than others. But, I said, and I would say to folks, I said, this is not I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm saying maybe if you can, find the time to vote, because if you keep doing it, it might make a change. Now, that's the hope I have.
It's a hope that we all have, but
yeah.
we can't deny that when you move the polling places, close the polling places, expunge the voting rolls,
Or act like there's an accidental Lynn Turner on election day.
Yeah.
That people get disengaged.
We're going to take a caller. We got Curtis. Curtis, how are you this morning?
I'm great, my brother, and I would just like to say very quickly, I don't want to hold you. Everything your guests have said, that brother and that sister, man, they hit the nail on the head for me. So I'm not going to go back over what they said. But here's my opinion, and my personal opinion. Man, I grieve every day for Jacksonville with the ignorance that exists here. And about voting, that's the key, brother. We do not, and I have nothing against these people. Al Sharpton, Martin Luther King Jr. They're great people, but we don't need them coming here. Well, we need to do our job. We need to get our people educated and vote. A couple of blocks from where that incident happened, that tragedy happened, somebody shot somebody hours later in Durkeeville. What does that say about us as a people? What does that say about our community? My God, I couldn't have shot nobody if I had that attitude right after that happened. But that's where we are. And do you know, I haven't heard anyone say this. While the governor was there, and I agree with everything you said about him, somebody was chanting, "We want Trump." Come on, man. And then Councilwoman Jacoby, a beautiful person, but for her to get up there and talk to those grown people like they was kids and talking about he going to bring gifts and let's get the party started, that was a visual for a tragedy. That is the representation that we got. We have got to be more serious about our lives in this community and what we want to see in Jacksonville. And I'm going to say this, and I ask this question. How many people have white friends that they love? How many people have minorities or other races in their family that they love? I have them all. I have Hispanic. I have Caucasians. I have Asian. So I don't deal with the racism, and I think that the color barrier, Frederick Douglass said this in the 1800s, the challenges for the United States is the color barrier. We cannot get past the word white, black. Oh man, when we can get past that and see people as human beings, and then accept them for who they are, and then try to identify with them and have a relationship with them, then we can get past all this hatred, man.
Yeah, we got you, Curtis.
Hatred come from fear. Thank you.
All right, man. Have a good day.
I think another point that gets missed in a lot of the conversation or can easily be overlooked is the cost that comes from allowing this type of racism and divide to grow in our community. And I think of specifically what Jacksonville lost more than a century ago when my favorite time in Jacksonville's history is this late 1880s, early 1890s when it was post-Reconstruction, and we were the rare place in the South where black residents and white labor joined together and had this coalition of power that took over the city council and built this really incredible place. And then it was stripped away by a white supremacist governor who removed the elected officials. And there was this moment in time after that happened where there was an attempted lynching of a Teamster. And the former black police commissioner, because we had elected black judges, elected black police commissioners, elected black city councilmen. The former black police commissioner led this armed group of black men who successfully fought back the white mob and saved this man's life. And after that is when people started moving away. And so you had T. Thomas Fortune move to Harlem, and he started the New York Age. James Weldon Johnson, A. Philip Randolph, Augusta Savage, Zora Neale Hurston. And so much of the best culture we had of the early 1900s came from Jacksons who moved to Harlem. And we missed out on that in Jacksonville because we allowed racism to rule the day.
It's Jacksvillians.
Jacksons. But yeah.
Jacksvillians. But we're going to end this subject out with one more call. Gideon, you're on the line.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. So I've had a thought for quite some time that's been haunting me ever since I've been in the country. We use the term lynching to describe an action. And to me, every time we use that word, we're giving glory to that person who attached their name to that action. And if we look back in history, we can see where hanging, the early days, the early starts of hanging was in early Persia. So I believe that if we are able to shift away from using that word, continue using that word, it's not going to give power to the ones who represented it. All right? If we can, I mean, there's a struggle right now to remove the monument. There's a struggle right now to end racism. There's a struggle right now to do a lot of things, and it seems like it's a mountain to climb. But if we start small, they're canceling everything these days. How is it that they're not canceling lynching, the word lynching, lynch mob, lynch this, lynch that? Why can't we just stop using that word and stop giving glory to that person? We talk about Jesus, we're giving glory to him. We talk about Buddha, we're giving glory to him. We talk about God, we're giving glory to him. We talk about lynching, we give glory to Willie and the rest of his guys. So
Gideon,
that's my question.
Gideon, thanks so much. Thanks so much for your comment. I would say that the reason why we use the word lynching is not to give glory to Lynch. I'm not even sure if Willie Lynch is actually where the term came from, but the reason why we use it, is because it evokes a picture and an understanding of American history and brings us into today. So we understand that, like, this nation, in the past, you can see pictures of lynchings happening all through, not just the South, but all through America, with whole groups of people watching these things like it's a sporting event. And primarily the people who were lynched were African Americans. And because of that past, to me, it feels like we're not giving praise to lynching or to the person it was named after, but we are honoring the people that experienced that racial violence. That would be my response to it.
He has a point that the words that we use matter.
Absolutely.
In my work as a narrative strategist for an organization called Narrative Initiative, we very much believe that the words and the language we use help to create stories. Those stories create messages. Those messages create narratives. One of the deepest narratives in Florida, Jacksonville, the United States, is the narrative of white supremacy and of racism. And as you just mentioned, the word lynching is part of the stories and that narrative that help to evoke the image of Black bodies and sometimes Jewish bodies being murdered, being brutalized, being terrorized for nothing other than living. And to go to your point about, there was a time in Jacksonville's history where there was a utopia. I would say that in the U.S. South, from 1865 until 1976, with the election of Rutherford B. Hayes, we had a vision of what America could look like and what racial progress could look like, and then it was stolen in a stolen election.
Compromised election.
Yeah.
Whichever word you choose to use. But it was stolen. And then we saw a period of racial terror and racial violence that from 1915 to 1970 drove millions of Black people from the South. And now, present day 2023 is like, you know what? Leaving the South isn't enough. Why don't we just leave America? And that's where we are right now.
There are so many places we could go with this issue, but I've got to keep it moving. And we definitely have to pay our respects, because Jacksonville lost 2 residents who each dedicated a better part of their lives to the city. Rita Reagan and Denise Lee. Nate, can you talk to us a little bit about Rita and Denise?
I can definitely talk about Denise a little bit. I had some experience reporting on her years ago when she was on the city council. Denise was really a remarkable figure in Jacksonville politics. She was certainly complicated, but she had a well-earned reputation for being a real champion for her neighborhoods. She was a very deft legislator. She understood the council rules deeply. She had a bit of a fierce reputation with her colleagues. She was not to be crossed, and has made a lot of important stands over the years. She was one of only two city council members who in 2012 supported an original, very robust version of the human rights ordinance expansion to the city's gay community. And in the 80s, she was part of a trio of council members who took a really principled stand and refused to vote on the budget. She and her colleagues walked out because the budget did not include enough money for drainage improvements in their districts. The council president, Tilly Fowler, who later became a member of Congress, had them arrested and brought back to the chamber to vote on the budget. And, but they ended up getting more money. And like that story, I think, kind of encapsulates Denise's spirit. She was very, very funny. She was just, a lot of fun to talk to and to listen to her war stories. And certainly the city lost a pretty significant champion there.
Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I knew Denise Lee as well as a reporter, and the thing that everybody in their remembrances of her is also pointing out is just how hilarious of a person she was, that she was an enormous, larger-than-life individual, and certainly not without her complications. I also did want to mention Rita Reagan, who was another really important person to the city. I used to work with one of her daughters, Denise. Rita helped lead the Springfield historic preservation movement that protected that neighborhood at a time when other neighborhoods like La Villa had been demolished. In the name of urban renewal, Springfield was protected, and she also led the effort to restore and preserve the Norman Silent Film Studios. And so in terms of connecting to our history, connecting to our neighborhoods, certainly an important monumental figure as well, who also passed this week.
All right, and we get to my favorite part of the segment, the lightning round. Ooh, I love it when a plan comes together. Andrew Pantazzi and Nate Monroe, thanks for coming in. We appreciate you, and we'll be right back.
Sing Out Loud Festival, St. Augustine.
Here in Studio 2 at WJCT. And we've been mentioning that Monday, September 4th, is not only Labor Day, but it's also 904 Day, a chance to celebrate all the awesome things about Northeast Florida. It's also a perfect opportunity to support local businesses. So we've invited Monica Anderson of Arble Bakery on to explain why. And also, Monica, you didn't bring me any goods?
Oh, yes, I absolutely did.
You
actually.
did? Okay.
I'm just hiding out from you.
Okay.
But I will definitely make sure that you get a taste of our cookies.
Okay, because like I love cookies. I'm literally like I could be the Cookie Monster in another life. So tell me, when did you open Arble Bakery?
Sure. So we opened Arble Baking Company in 2020, and I actually founded this company with my siblings. So I have two brothers and one sister, and we opened up this bakery as a legacy to our parents. So
nice.
Baking runs in our blood, and my parents, or my mom specifically, has been baking these cookies for, oh my goodness, over 40 plus years. And my dad served on the Jacksonville Fire and Rescue Department, and he would bring these same cookies to the station. So he's known as the Cookie Man in the in the local community. But these cookies have afforded us many opportunities, and as a byproduct of these cookies, we've all been able to go to college debt free. So
nice.
Very, very happy to have opened up something to honor them and to continue the legacy.
So how can people find you?
Absolutely. So you can find us many different ways. If you're an Instagrammer or a Facebooker, you can find us online at Arble Baking Co. If you prefer to go in our storefront and support us there, we're located at the end of US 1 in Dunn Avenue in the Rose Shopping Center next to the subway. So get your sub and then come get some cookies. And then also we have a website, arblebaking.com, where you can learn a little bit more about our story and also peruse what we have.
So if I go to Arble Bakery for the first time, what is the cookie I have to have?
Oh my goodness. Okay, I got to throw my bias out the window. I will tell you what's the best seller for sure.
I want to know what your bias is.
So I absolutely love the oatmeal raisin and ginger molasses.
Ooh, okay.
Cookie. Those are my favorite.
Wait, you said oatmeal raisin and
raisin
ginger molasses? Oh,
and
my goodness.
ginger molasses, two of my favorite cookies, but our customers absolutely love the oatmeal nut cookie and the chocolate chip cookie. And don't worry, I brought you some.
I was about to say, I think I'm going to ride with you,
Yes.
though. 'Cause as you're talking about it, I'm like, cookie.
Yes, I love that.
So are you doing anything specific in support of 904 Day?
Absolutely. So we're not open on Monday, but I mean, we feel like a celebration is definitely warranted. So we are pricing our Duval Duo 20% off. And what the Duval Duo is you get to try all those wonderful cookies that I named and more, along with our cupcakes too. And there is a sampler pack, and you can come in and you can get that. And you can really try you could taste all of our bakery basically in one box. So we are doing that in celebration of 904 Day.
That is excellent. So I'm going to have to put you on the spot a little bit.
Oh, boy.
My understanding is that you used to cheer
Oh my
for
God.
the Roar for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, so I did that. I don't want to say how long ago I did it, but I did it a long time ago.
Listen,
but
long time is relative. I mean, we got trees that are 100 years old.
You got
so,
a good point.
it's all
You got a
relative.
good point. It felt like it feels, it does.
It was
definitely
yesterday.
It was yesterday,
It was
right? Like it
yesterday.
feels like it was yesterday, but it was. We'll just call it a few years back. But yes, I cheered for the Roar for 4 years, and out of that, at least that 1 year, I was the choreographer. And let me tell you, we had those cookies then, so I would actually bring our cookies to practice.
Okay.
So.
So my producer asked if you could give us your best Duval.
Oh, of course.
Hit it.
Duval.
Ladies and gentlemen, you got to go get some of these cookies. I'm just saying, you're making my mouth water. I'm about to try some right now. I'm sorry, listener, that you cannot have any. That's why you have to go to the shop and pick it up. Or you can find them on Instagram. It's Arble Bakery. That's Arble, Arble. Baking on Instagram,
yeah,
right?
Arble Baking Co. on Instagram and also on Facebook.
All right. Monica Anderson, thank you so much for coming in.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
And that is our show today. We also have a little bit of a giveaway to help you celebrate 904 Day. We're giving away a pair of VIP tickets to this weekend's Taco and Tequila Festival. To enter, email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Put tacos in the subject. On the first line, I think you should probably say the host is amazing. I'm just saying that might go a long way to getting you those tickets. Just saying. We'll select and notify one winner at random. And that's it. It's going into the weekend. Our theme music is created by Club de Belugas. Jump the Shark. If you have any questions or comments about this First Coast Connect, send an email to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. I'm Al Letson, and you've been listening, and we hope that you have a good, restful weekend. And I'll see y'all Monday. Or excuse me, I'll see y'all Tuesday. I'm taking off Monday.